Hello, economists. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the different shapes of the indifference curves. First of all, I'll talk to you about the shape of the indifference curve for perfect complements. 2. The shape of the indifference curve for perfect substitutes. 3. When one good is strongly preferred to another. 4. When one good is liked and the other is not liked at all. 1. For this perfect complements. You know what perfect complements are? If you don't, perfect complements are goods that are used in fixed proportions. For instance, in the ratio of 1 to 1, or 2 to 1, or 3 to 1, or 5 to 6, depending on the case. Per example of perfect complements would be a car and petrol. You can't use one without using the other. They go hand in hand. Petrol. 2. Perfect substitutes are goods that you substitute for another. These are goods that if one is not available, you can go for the other. Perfect substitutes are goods that you can, perfect substitutes are goods that you can use in place of another. For instance, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. 3. I'm going to be talking about when, for instance, I'm going to be using goods like pineapple and coconuts. Pineapple and coconut are two goods, and when one good is strongly preferred to the other, that means you like one good more than the other, meaning you like both in different proportions. When one good is strongly preferred to another, for instance, we have two goods like pineapples and coconuts. When you strongly prefer pineapple over coconut, and when you prefer coconut over pineapple, meaning you like both goods, you like both, you like both goods, but strongly prefer one. That means you like both goods you will like one good more than coconut, more than the other. For instance, you prefer coconuts to more than pineapples. You demand for pineapples, but you demand for coconuts more. That's what I mean by when I say the good is strongly preferred. 4. When one good is liked and you totally dislike the other. That means I like pineapples and I don't like coconuts. I like coconuts and I don't like pineapples. Coconuts and I don't like pineapples. So the shape of the indifference curve for perfect complements. Pardon me, it's the way I'm using my video. Perfect complements is L-shaped. So the shape of indifference curve is L-shaped for perfect complements. I said like car and petrol. And the MRS for one good, this is when MRS for one good is 0. And the other is infinite. So the MRS for one good is infinite and the MRS for the other is 0. So this is the shape of the indifference curve for perfect complements. You can also call this the Leontief curve. I hope I'm correct with the spelling. The Leontief curve, because the man who spoke about the perfect complements, it was Leontief. 2, we're going to be talking about the perfect Substitutes. The shape of the indifference curve for perfect substitutes. The shape of the indifference curve for perfect substitutes is this. It's slanting, diagonal, straight line, straight and diagonal. If you don't, it needs to be straight and diagonal. Straight line, straight. So the MRS, an example of goods that are perfect substitutes are Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And the MRS here, MRS is constant for these goods. Okay. So this for the third one, indifference curve for strongly preferred. For strongly preferred. For instance, you have pineapples. Let me just say pine. I don't know if this, let me just say pine. And coconuts, I'll use coke. So you prefer this to, and lots of this, and maybe a little of this, little proportion of this. Maybe let me say in 4:1. So for when you strongly prefer, let me put pineapples here and coconuts here. When you strongly prefer pineapples to coconuts, the indifference curve will be straight like this. It will be, the indifference curve will be vertical. I mean, when you prefer pineapples and you don't like coconuts at all, pardon me, this was supposed to be 4. When you prefer pineapples totally and you don't like coconuts, it will be horizontal. When you prefer coconuts only, you like just coconuts and you don't like pineapples, it will be vertical. The MRS will be vertical. When you prefer coconuts more than pineapples, the shape will be not here. So you see, when you have strong preference for coconuts, it's vertical. When you have strong preference for coconuts, but when you have total preference for coconuts, I mean, it's vertical. When you have preferences for coconuts more than pineapples, you love coconuts more than, it's still vertical but slants down a little. It just has a little steep. It's supposed to go like this. When you have strong preferences for pineapples, it goes like this. You see, pineapples, coconuts. The indifference curve is this shape. Strong preference for coconut. Preference for pineapples. The indifference curve is this shape. When you have strong preferences for coconuts, the indifference curve is slanted like this. But you see from this side, it's slanted like this. So let's take a quick review of all that we've learned. When you have perfect complements, the shape of the indifference curve is L-shaped, also called the Leontief curve. Where MRS for one good is 0. and the MRS for another is infinite. When you have perfect substitute, the MRS is constant and is shaped diagonal. Perfect substitute, the indifference curve for perfect substitute is diagonal. When you have indifference curve for you have total preference for one good over another. Sorry, you have total preference for one good over another. The indifference curve is like shaped straight like this. Total preference for pineapples. Sorry. When you have total preference for pineapples over coconuts, the indifference curve is straight. Total preference for pineapples and no preference for coconuts is straight, horizontal, or pineapples, coconuts. Zero preference for coconuts. All preference for pineapples is straight. It goes straight. Please pardon my lines. When you have strong preference for coconuts and no preference for pineapples, the indifference curve is shaped this straight. When you have this one is total dislike. This indifference curve is total dislike for pineapples, but you love coconuts, so is downward sloping, or you say vertical. When you have strong preference for pineapples and little preference for coconuts, it's also shaped this way, but it's slightly slanting over here, but it's almost horizontal, but you see slightly steep. When you have strong preference for pineapples and you have low preference for coconut, you see it's almost the same shape with the strong preference for pineapple. When you have total preference for prefer pineapples, your indifference curve will be shaped like this. You put the indifference curve here. Indifference curve for pineapples will be horizontal. I hope you enjoyed my video. Until next time, thank you.